Monday to everybody. I sure hope that you are beginning this week with encouragement. I'm George Akers, pastor of First Apostolic Church here in Sanford, North Carolina. Today I want to tell you everything is going to be all right. The storm will pass. The trial will come to an end. Trouble, as one song says, won't last always. And I want to talk to you today about insufficient evidence. Listen, I want you to hear me carefully. You don't have all the evidence. Sometimes we say things are bad and we conclude things are one way when there's more facts to learn and there's more knowledge to gain. And at the end of the day, as has been said many times, hindsight is truly 20/20. It's when you look back over what happened that you can see with more clarity than what you could while you were in the midst of it. When Jacob thought that his son, in the book of Genesis, his son Joseph was dead, it was only because his son's coat was brought to him covered in blood, and by the circumstantial evidence given to him, by the account that was told him, he concluded, "It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without a doubt," he said, "rent in pieces." He took what he saw and concluded the worst. He mourned over the death of his son for the next 22 years, but all the while he had insufficient evidence. The truth is, his son was alive. "Jacob, what do you mean that Joseph is dead?" "Yes, there was a storm, and it was a bad storm. But the storm has passed. The prime minister now is Joseph. Joseph is the prime minister of all Egypt. Joseph is the second most powerful man in the world. He's living in a palace. He's married and has 2 children. Joseph is living in more luxuries than you've ever dreamed of." And then after another series of events, Jacob hears more news of another storm in his life. And he concludes, "I'm bereaved of all my children, Joseph is not, Simeon is not, and you will take Benjamin away." He said, "All these things are against me." He thought Simeon was gone. But Jacob, your conclusions yet again are based on insufficient evidence. What do you mean Simeon is not? Simeon's in the care of his loving brother Joseph now. Nothing's going to happen to Simeon. Simeon's in better shape than all of you are. And in the same breath of concluding that both Joseph and Simeon were dead and they were gone, Jacob also concludes the same thing is going to happen to his son Benjamin. Jacob speculates that Benjamin's death is coming while Benjamin is still with him. But Jacob, what do you mean Benjamin is not? Benjamin's still standing in your presence. And what's more is that Benjamin's going to receive 5 times the blessings of everybody else when they go back to Egypt. Benjamin's going to be blessed abundantly above all the rest of his brethren. You're making all conclusions on insufficient evidence. You're just going by what your eyes can see and not what your faith can discern. I've come to tell you today, it may look like your world's caving in, but God is still in control. If you'll just get out of the driver's seat of your life and let God drive. Jacob said, "All these things are against me." We've traveled that road when our goals were not reached and our hopes and our dreams melted and the tide came in and destroyed our sandcastles and our ambitions crumbled at our feet. Our material or our marital relationship falls apart, or things aren't working out on our job. There's pandemonium over a global pandemic. There's financial dilemmas. There's health issues. One thing follows another, and you think all things are against you. Some days, the greatest challenge has been just to get through the day. It looks like the world is caving in. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Let me just give you a few words of biblical advice today. What do we do when all these things seem to be against us? First of all, you've got to realize it's insufficient evidence. Get the dime out of your eye. With the dime in your eye, all you see is the dime. But when you pull the dime away, you can see the dime in perspective of the rest of the world. Secondly, get all the facts. Make sure you know all the facts before you come to a conclusion. I love a verse that is found in Colossians 1:17, where it tells us that Jesus Christ is before all things, and by him all things consist. He was before all things ever come about, and it's only by him that all things are being held together. If anything falls apart, it's only because he allows it. He will not put more on you than you can bear. And Hebrews 13:8 tells us that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Get all the facts. And with all the facts, you combat insufficient evidence with sufficient evidence. 2 Corinthians 12:9, his grace is sufficient. I'll give you some sufficient evidence. 2 Corinthians 12:9, his grace is sufficient. John 3:16, his love is sufficient. Psalm 103:17, his mercy is sufficient. Matthew 28:18, his power is sufficient. Philippians 4:19, he is sufficient, for he's all I need. And thirdly, know that persistence breaks resistance. Once you've got sufficient evidence that he's all I need, that he's got us, that he will be with us always, persistence breaks resistance. There's times when you just keep moving on. That's just what you do. You don't listen to the temporal voices. You don't look at the contemporary evidence. You keep your eyes on the eternal evidence. You recognize that there are times it will appear that life is against us. But even when life is against you, God is for you. When the world is against you, God is for you. This is not the sweet by and by. This is the nasty now and now. We have not yet arrived. We have not yet attained. We are not there yet. We still are in the work day. We are still on the clock. The day is not over yet, but it will be over after by and by when the morning comes. And the only way you'll know that all adversity cannot prevail against you is sometimes for all adversity to break out against you. But when it's through and you're still standing, then you can say, I know it. I don't just talk about it. I just don't pretend, but I know it. I know because it's all broke against me and I've come through it victorious. 3 things today. Realize that you have insufficient evidence. And then secondly, get sufficient evidence, the eternal evidence. And thirdly, know that persistence will always break resistance. The Bible is tried and proven. God gives us the scriptures not just to temporarily soothe us, but to get us through the trial we are facing. The trial is an opportunity to try and prove God and find that God is faithful. God will see you through if you'll turn it over to Him, surrender to Him, and live for Him. I pray that you have a blessed Monday and know that God is in control.